He never asked to be his friend. No, first of all, to be in the LeBron James circle is probably the most exclusive circle I've ever seen. So, but that was never implied. And that's what I don't get. Like, LeBron is implying that, like, Wendy is almost like trying to invade on LeBron's circle. Welcome to episode 272 of Empty the Bench here on the Empty the Bench podcast network presented by Playback. He's Anthony Balester. I'm Nick Morgasen. Follow us on social media at ETB Sports, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok at ETB Sports. Follow the Empty the Bench podcast network at ETB Network. Make sure you like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/ETB Network, as we get closer to 1,000 subscribers. If you can't listen on the video side, listen to Empty the Bench wherever you get your podcasts. I can go on that list forever, but Spotify, Apple Podcasts, you know the deal. It's on all those platforms. Make sure you check out our ETB Substack, etbnetwork.substack.com. It's $5 a month or $60 for the year. We have Elio Analytics, which will be taping after this. I promise you it's a good one this week. It's a really good one. You're going to want to check that one out. And Empty the Bench is presented by Playback. Make sure you tune in later on in the show to find out more. And just a quick follow-up to that as well. We Playback just made a deal with Major League Baseball. So now we have all access to the full Major League Baseball season. So you will be seeing us do that as well. All right. So just in case anyone was under a rock, we skipped last week's episode. I was pretty sick last week. And Anthony knows this. I usually don't miss shows. Even if I'm not feeling 100%, it takes a lot for me to cancel an episode for the week. But I promise you, this is a fantastic episode. We have NBA controversy all over the place. We have NBA injuries all over the place. We have March Madness to kind of go over. Some interesting headlines. We have torpedo bats in Major League Baseball. And if you're wondering what's a torpedo bat, you'll find out a little bit later. And we'll get into some UFC as well. But before we do all that, Anthony, how are we doing after the week off?
I'm doing real good. I'm glad to be back. I'm glad to see you, Nick, doing really well. And I'm glad that you recovered well. And I'm sorry that you were feeling so ill last week. But you picked a great week to come back. There was so much basketball and NBA news, and I can't wait to break it all down with you.
Yeah, so let's get right into it. And this was a story that was going on during that week. LeBron versus Stephen A. Smith. And this goes back to last month when we actually did this story on the show where Stephen A. was, I think, sitting courtside at a Lakers game, and he was talking about his son Bronny, and it led to a whole back and forth and whatnot, and then LeBron would say his thing, and Stephen A. would go on First Take and say his thing, and it was like they were each taking like punches at each other and punching each other in the mouth. And then, out of shock, we see LeBron in studio for the Pat McAfee show for like an hour and 15 minutes. I don't know how this guy manages to get these interviews. Like, guys that would never come into studio at all has LeBron in a flash right there in Indianapolis. And LeBron just starts taking shots left and right at Stephen A. and Brian Windhorst. And like, it was a very bizarre interview. I don't know if you saw any of it, but I don't know where I am at this point with this fight. Like, what's your reaction to all this stuff currently?
Well, the first thing I'll say is when I was at work, I saw it on Twitter, and I thought for sure it had to be fake. With all the AI-generated videos you see, I was like, there's no way LeBron James is on the Pat McAfee show. A guy who's been in the league for 20 years, you'd never see him go on shows like that. It's usually shows that like he creates, like the Barbershop or other stuff like that. For him to go on somebody else's show, like the Pat McAfee show, it was stunning. And then when to see it was actually true and see all the things he was saying, I mean, I agree with 99% of what he says. I think, now that his son's in the NBA, I think that there's things that are causing him to have to speak out and have to be different and act differently than he did previous years. And like he said it best, it's not the fact of Bronny James being criticized by Stephen A. Smith. He knows it's the NBA. It's the top league in the world. ESPN guys are going to be criticized in every single game that you have. So he knows that that's what comes with the territory. So he's not mad about that. Like I said before, he's mad about when he brings your parent into question. And like I said to you, Nick, yeah, he talked about LeBron as a parent, but has he ever once talked about Michael Jordan as a parent or another athlete? It was only LeBron. And I think LeBron took that personally, and that's why he felt the need to, kind of basically stick up for him and his family. And then Stephen A. Smith, obviously had to respond. And I think what Stephen A. Smith said was even worse. For him to come out and say, oh, you weren't at Kobe Bryant's memorial ceremony. You weren't at Dwayne Wade's Hall of Fame induction.
Which was wrong,
LeBron
by the way.
Actually at the memorial.
Yeah.
And the Dwayne Wade situation, his son just had cardiac arrest just a couple weeks before that. That's why he didn't go to Dwayne Wade's Hall of Fame induction. So Stephen A. Smith, I think, was wrong for saying that.
I mean, I think we need to talk about, because Stephen A's had quite a few gaffes over the last couple of weeks. One being that he just totally messed that up about being at Kobe's memorial, which he was. I think being a parent is a legitimate excuse for not being at Dwayne Wade's Hall of Fame induction. By the way, those two will always be connected, regardless if he's not at the Hall of Fame ceremony. And I'm sure he either called or texted or said something to him. So, because, again, LeBron wouldn't be a 3-time champion plus in Miami without Dwayne Wade. So there's enough connection there where I don't think that's the end of the world that he missed that. But Stephen A. has messed up on some facts lately. I don't know if you saw the story that he got that he said Nolan Richardson was dead. Also, I don't know if you saw that story. Completely wrong, by the way. Rest in peace. He was talking to Seth Greenberg on First Take. He said, "Oh, rest in peace to Nolan Richardson." I'm like, he's not dead. Like, he's still alive. Like, I think he's in his 80s, but like he's still alive. Like, I don't know how you get that information wrong, considering as big a figure as he is. Like, do your fact checking. That's what they tell us in this business. Whether you're doing radio or podcasting or TV, make sure what you're saying is factual. It's important.
And this is a guy that's making $20 million a year to talk about sports.
I mean, he just got a new 5-year, $100 million deal with ESPN, and you got to be careful. You don't want to get sued. You don't want to end up in these situations where you're stating misinformation. Now, I sound like back in the COVID days when they were just giving out misinformation left and right on news. This was a big problem because, again, I worked in the talk radio space, so I constantly had to tell my host, hey, do not say something unless you have factual information to back up what you're saying. I had to do that constantly. And that's the producers, unfortunately, on First Take don't have the power to kind of overrule Stephen A. at all, because Stephen A. is the executive producer of First Take. So he controls who's on the show, what's discussed on the show, what can be said, and that can be dangerous sometimes when the talent is the executive producer of a show. But there were some things that bothered me with LeBron on Pat McAfee's show, including taking a rip at Brian Windhorst, which I thought was kind of uncalled for, just a little. Basically say, oh, well, he thinks he's my friend and blah, 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 blah. Like, LeBron never said that. He never said, oh, well, I'm his best friend. Never said that. He said that he's covered you since you were in college or in high school. That's all he said. He never said anything about boasting about being your friend. So LeBron sometimes has this tendency to overblow headlines and turn them into drama when they're not necessary. But I thought that was wrong, that shot at Brian Windhorst.
I'm glad that you brought that up, Nick. When I first brought this topic up, I said I agree with 99% of LeBron said. That 1% I disagree with was the shot he took at Brian Windhorst. I mean, Brian Windhorst is a guy who's always stuck up for LeBron. a guy who, whenever you see them talking about LeBron as a topic on ESPN, he's always the guy who's sticking up for him and having, LeBron's best interest. Whether he's, he never said he was a friend, but he never tried to act like a friend. All he tried to do was cover LeBron, like you said, since he was back in high school. And he always gave LeBron the benefit of the doubt. And I think he always covered LeBron in a very good way. I don't think he ever said anything bad or ever tried to make LeBron look worse than what he is. If anything, he tried to make LeBron look better than maybe what he was. So I agree with you, Nick. I'm definitely glad that you brought that up. I don't think he should have made a shot at Brian Windhorst, a guy who's pretty much been on his side all along.
So LeBron called Brian Windhorst, quote, weird, among other small jabs. That surprised many in the NBA's. Windhorst has always been a supportive reporter when it comes to the coverage of James. And Windy responded by saying, LeBron doesn't owe me anything. I owe him a lot. Just know I met LeBron 25 years ago, and my understanding of LeBron and where people stand in his life have been crystal clear. I think that's 100% accurate, to be quite honest. Like, he never asked to be his friend. No, first of all, to be in the LeBron James circle is probably the most exclusive circle I've ever seen. So, but that was never implied. And that's what I don't get. Like, LeBron is implying that, like, Windy is almost like trying to invade on LeBron's circle, which has never been the case. But this whole thing, I think, got overblown. And Stephen A has a tendency to defend people, which is a good quality. You defend your own colleagues, even though he's probably number one above everybody else when it comes to money and power. But I don't know. It turned into a bad situation. Do I think Stephen A kind of prolonged this a little bit? Yes, I do. He could have just had one response and just said, all right, I'm calling it a day. I don't need to say anything anymore. But I think, unfortunately, Stephen A likes the attention and the spotlight a little too much.
It's like LeBron said, Stephen A. Smith was like, I did not want to have to come on television, talk about the encounter me and LeBron had. But after it went viral, I had no choice. We know that's BS. He couldn't wait to go on television and talk about it, just like he couldn't wait to respond to LeBron when he was on the Pat McAfee show. So Stephen A. Smith acts like he doesn't want to do this, but he wants to talk about this. Obviously, think about it. How many more people now are talking about Stephen A. Smith now than they were a couple weeks ago? And now Stephen A. Smith's going out there and he's making it personal. He's saying, I never liked the guy, or, I can promise you when he retires, I'm not going to talk about him. I think Stephen A. Smith at times thinks that he's bigger than what he actually is. I mean, have you seen him walking into NBA arenas, walking like he's like about to play in the game and about to drop 30?
I saw that video. I mean, it's the most ridiculous thing. The other thing I want to point out, and most people didn't realize this, but the way LeBron handled this, think about time slots on ESPN, the way the scheduling is set up. LeBron went on the Pat McAfee show, which is purposely after First Take. So that was a direct shot, knowing that LeBron went on McAfee show, which is right after First Take. People don't realize that, but that was a direct shot at Stephen A. Oh, I'll go on ESPN. I just won't go on his show, and I'll take the show right after you. So it's dumb. It's ridiculous. And I think LeBron's, like, even though he says, I'm a good person, his ego is like the size of the world. Like, he thinks, you can't attack me, blah, 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 blah. No. LeBron, you're the second greatest player of all time. When you do stupid things, people are going to call you out for it. Same thing with Stephen A. When Stephen A does stupid things, we all call him out for it. It's the same way on both sides of the argument, both sides of the aisle. So it is what it is. But Stephen A is a little too attracted to the spotlight, and that's why this thing kept going. All right, let's move on within the NBA headlines. This kind of dropped out of the blue. Grizzlies fire head coach Taylor Jenkins. And I was very confused by this a little bit, because if I remember in the standings, and I have to look them up because I don't have them in front of me at the moment. Here we go. So the Grizzlies are... Where are they in the standings? They are 5th in the West. That leads to a coach being fired?
Yeah, I was shocked. I mean, when I saw that they were firing him, I'm like, wait, a team that's a top 5 seed in the West that's going to be going into the playoffs is going to fire their coach 2 weeks before the playoffs. I was absolutely shocked. And, I think I read this correctly. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they said he's the winningest coach in terms of winning percentage in Grizzlies history. I mean, this is a guy who, when John Morant's been able to, keep everything together, usually gets this team to the playoffs. So, I was surprised, but when I read more into this, I guess there was locker room issues. I guess there was chemistry issues. The players didn't feel like they were all on the same page. They kind of felt like they were divided. They were worried about when John Morant comes back, how's the chemistry going to work? So I guess ultimately the organization thought, they wanted to maximize John Morant. Now with Jaren Jackson Jr. back healthy, they want to maximize this team this year. And they felt like the best way to maximize it is to kind of basically get rid of Taylor Jenkins and go with an interim coach who I guess is very about stylistics and game planning and building up, a game plan for the team they're playing. So they think it's going to be a better fit and get them further in the playoffs this year. So I guess I understand it from that point.
Well, according to these reports, apparently nobody was on the same page between him and the organization. But again, how does that make sense? Because the team currently, as we're recording, is 44-31. That's good. That's really good. That's 13 games over 500, which is hard to do in this sport. And you fire him, and I'm trying to read all these insider reports because again, I don't know who to believe. Like he said this, she said this. Who's right here? And it says one day after the team fired Jenkins, Memphis general manager Zach Kleiman stood in front of a lectern and explained his decision to fire his head coach and 2 assistants. I forgot. They fired his 2 head assistants too. It says urgency is a core principle of ours. He said, my expectations are clarity of direction. He didn't elaborate beyond those 2 points. Really? So you basically go generic statement? Like, that doesn't tell me why you were fired. Urgency is a core principle. That you can say that about any team, that urgency is a core principle. If you don't have urgency, you're not going to win, right?
Yeah, I agree, Ned. Do you think maybe this was like a players motivated thing? I mean, you think this was something that Jaren Jackson, John Morant, and the players wanted? Because if that's the case, I mean, maybe they were worried about we're winning games, but you don't want to lose the locker room and potentially lose everything next year. So maybe they thought they'd get ahead of this.
The only thing I could compare this to, if it was a players thing, would be Giannis with Budenholzer in Milwaukee when the players essentially said we want nothing to do with him anymore. Remember they were in the top 2-3 seeds? And it made no sense then. And that's when they brought in Doc Rivers, right? And look what Doc Rivers has been a disaster ever since. But I don't know. Something doesn't smell right with this move at all. I don't know what it is. It had to be a players thing. That's the only thing that this can be. I don't think the organization would have just said, bye, you're 13 games over 500. We're going to let you go. I just don't see. That doesn't sound logical to me at all. It has to be, well, first of all, Jared Jackson is out for the year, number one. So even if they are going to make the playoffs, but he's not a factor this year.
I thought he came back.
Did he come back? I thought he was out for the year.
I thought he came back recently.
You might be right. But he had a significant injury. So I can't blame that on Taylor Jenkins if he's hurt. Also, John Morant has been hurt on and off all year. You're going to blame that on him? No. You can't blame any of this. John Morant has been a headache and an injury problem since Taylor Jenkins has taken over. And I just want to make sure that that's right if he came back. Because I seriously, you might be right on Jared Jackson Jr. Because I remember the original report was that he was done for the year. But all right, I'll have to look for it after. But he was a clear defensive player of the year candidate. Also, the guy has more blocks than I've ever seen in my life. But so this is clearly player motivated. Now, again, I don't have a confirmation of that, but I've seen this before, and this has to be player motivated because I think Taylor Jenkins is actually a really good coach, and he'll get another job. Don't you worry about that. Just because it didn't work out here, if you have leaving, I would say on your resume, oh, I got fired for being 13 games over 500 is not such a bad thing, in my opinion. And some team will hire him. Or he'll go be an analyst for a year and then come back and be a coach, and the next coaching cycle comes up. I don't know. Did I miss anything on that front? Or
no, I agree with everything that you said. I think he'll definitely get another shot, and I think that there's more to this than the public and us have knowledge of. There definitely has to be more information internally, whether if it's through the players or the GM or the organization. But someone with that record doesn't just get fired, out of the blue just because not everybody's on the same page. Like you said, Nick, maybe it was player motivated. We'll never know the true story. But there's definitely more to play at here, and I definitely think he'll get another shot. I mean, he's won too many games not to.
Yeah, and I'm sure we're going to hear something sooner or later because it eventually gets leaked, usually. And because all these players have podcasts, they accidentally say too much most of the time. Go ask Paul George. He's done that far too many times. All right, let's move around to the NBA injury bug because we were discussing this before the show, and the joke I made to you is that you could make an all-star lineup out of all these injuries. So what am I talking about? This is what I'm talking about. Now, if you can't see on the audio side, on the video side here, Damian Lillard, Zion Williamson, CJ McCollum, LaMelo Ball, and Kevin Durant. That's a starting five, almost, or is. And I kind of feel bad for Dame a little bit because the blood clot has kind of been going around, and I don't know what to say about that. Like, there's been how many blood clot situations have we had so far this year?
Definitely quite a few. And I think he's got the exact same thing as Victor Wembanyama.
Oh, right. See, I keep forgetting that he was done for the year because it happened early on, but he's down for the year. Dame is probably done for the year, I think, because it's too close to the end of the season already. I appreciate what the Bucks did because Dame said they caught it early, so at least they'll be able to recover it. But who knows if he'll play again? Like, it's a very serious situation. Injury. I don't even know if I call it an injury. I think I would call it a health situation more than an injury. But this goes all the way back to the days of Chris Bosh, when Chris Bosh had, I think, a similar thing to Dame. But Chris Bosh's was way more serious to the point where Miami was not willing to risk someone dying on the court. If I remember correctly, Chris Bosh almost said he was willing to sign a waiver to get back on the court. And I think Miami did the right thing saying, no, we'll pass. We'll pay you, but we'll pass. The Zion and the CJ McCollum thing, they had serious injuries, but they're like 21 and 54. So for them, are you really going to risk their injuries with how bad their team is? No, you're just not going to do that whatsoever. Even though I think Zion's been a complete disaster ever since he's been drafted. I talk about someone who was way overhyped as a number one overall pick and hasn't done anything since let me take that back. He's done more off the court than he's done on the court. And for most people get that joke, you'll get what I'm saying. LaMelo Ball is just strictly an injury. I think they just had to get minor procedures done. Kevin Durant, this guy just has bad luck. Just really bad luck. I don't like him. You don't like him. We don't like what he stands for as a person. But he just has bad luck. So I'll talk about the Kevin Durant one later. What do you think about the other four?
Yeah, it's definitely tough as a basketball and NBA fan, but a lot of these you saw coming, like you said, with Zion Williamson, CJ McCollum. Their season was over. They really weren't playing here for anything. But again, Zion, another season where he's going to end up playing, I think, 30 or less games. He's done that now 4 out of 6 seasons. And the unfortunate thing, Nick, is you say he hasn't done anything, and yeah. But when he's on the court, their winning percentage is actually pretty decent. When he's on the court, this team actually can make the playoffs, and this team can compete. When he plays on the court, he plays winning basketball. He's hard to stop, but he's never on the court. And the problem is he reminds me of these top number 1 picks that they come into the league, they get a few injuries, and they're never able to get over it. And, it doesn't seem like Zion has the track record to be the most healthiest guy or be the guy that, puts, stuff into his body to make it better and do what LeBron does. LeBron spends over $1 million on his body. It doesn't seem like Zion puts the effort and the resource into his body. Now, I know they said when he did come back from his most recent injury, he did drop a few pounds. He was at his lowest weight in the last few years, and we saw him dropping triple doubles. And it looked like maybe we're going to get some of the old Zion. And then his back flared up again like it usually does, and now he's out for the rest of the year. I think next year is a really, really huge year for Zion. I think it's a make it or break it year for Zion. I think if Zion has another year where he doesn't get over the hump and he doesn't stay healthy, I could see the Pelicans deciding like, hey, screw this. We're going to trade you for nothing. Try to get the most we can and kind of go into a rebuild and start from scratch. I think you get this one more year and that's it. For Damian Lillard, they did catch it early. They are hoping that maybe they could get him back some point in the playoffs, but this is a scary situation that, I'm not sure if you can expect him back. And for the Bucks, Giannis, yeah, he's a top 3 player in the world. He's an MVP candidate, but he can only do so much. And with Kyle Kuzma now as the second best player, I don't think that's good enough for the Bucks to even get past even the first round or have a playoff run. So Damian Lillard's injury definitely really kills their playoff chances. With LaMelo Ball, another guy just like Zion who hasn't been able to stay on the court. The only difference is between him and Zion is even when LaMelo Ball's on the court, the team still doesn't win. And, he puts up great numbers. He's a great scorer, but he's really, inefficient. He's a guy who just jacks up a lot of shots, and that's why he does have a lot of points. I think if he could figure out a way to stay healthy and figure out a way to become more efficient, get more of his players involved, and play more winning basketball with the other guys that they do have, like Brandon Miller and Mark Williams and others, the Hornets do have the pieces to compete. But LaMelo Ball's got to start playing winning basketball, and he's got to start staying healthy. And I got more questions about him than I do Zion Williamson. And then finally with Kevin Durant, I mean, what a disaster this big three has been for the Suns. I mean, they're the 11th spot. Durant's going to probably be out for at least the regular season, so maybe you get him back for the play-in tournament. But this is a team right now that may not even make the play-in tournament. And the combination of him, Booker, and Beal have been absolutely disastrous. They probably would have been better off just building around Durant and Booker. Trading for Bradley Beal, who hasn't been able to stay healthy, even when he's been on the court, hasn't been the same player that he once was. And then you got the factor in Durant's always hurt. So this is a team that can't rely on anybody. And if I was the Suns general manager, well, he should be fired first off. But if I was the Suns general manager, I would honestly trade Kevin Durant and basically kind of build around Devin Booker. I think this is a team that kind of needs to retool and rebuild, and they need to build it around Devin Booker and get rid of Kevin Durant.
I don't know if a team is going to want to trade for Kevin Durant now. Like the Nets, by the way, did an incredible job. The huge haul they got back in a trade for him. I don't know. You're not going to get that same haul back for Kevin Durant, especially with the injuries that keep happening. Because of the name value, you might get more than you expect. But just to finish on the LaMelo Ball front, I think the Hornets made a huge mistake giving him a max deal. Number one, he's definitely not worth a max deal. Like you said, he jacks up a lot of shots. He can put up triple doubles, but it's not consistency by any means. So I just think that they're going to regret giving that contract to LaMelo Ball. Back to the Kevin Durant situation. I don't like what Kevin Durant stands for. I don't like what Kevin Durant can't lead a team by himself. Let's just call a spade a spade. This guy has tried to lead a team before. It has not worked. The only teams that he had some success on were OKC when he was with James Harden and Russell Westbrook, and Golden State with Steph Curry being the lead. When he went to the Nets, it was a disaster in a lot of forms. Now, I said this to you before, they're probably 2 inches of a 3-point line away from making an NBA Finals, but that whole time was a disaster with Brooklyn. And I'm a Net fan, so I know, trust me. And then the Suns have been a disaster. By the way, the Suns are so far over the cap, it's going to take a village to fix that salary cap. So every once in a while, you get a team that is willing to take a risk, and the ownership spends millions of dollars, a la Golden State, which ended up working out at the time because they had Steph Curry, they had Draymond Green, they had Klay Thompson, they got Kevin Durant. The owner was like in the red, but was willing to pay it because they were winning consecutive titles. They won 3 in 5 years, if I'm not mistaken. So the owner is going to say, hey, I'm willing to shell it out a little bit if we're going to win titles because that's going to make us better. When I look at the Suns, it's a disaster. It's an absolute freaking disaster what is going on over there. I mean, you were totally right. Bradley Beal is a disaster. Like, is he a good player offensively? Yes, but his contract is bad. He's got basically, I shouldn't say basically, he does have a full no trade clause. So his contract is basically immovable almost, unless he agrees. And by the way, I don't know if I've ever said this to you before, but I feel like when you give players a no trade clause, I call it the idiot clause because basically you're giving the player the power for when it doesn't work with you, that they have all the leverage and they control what you get back value wise. Because they could say, well, I'm not going here, 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 or here. I only want to go to a contender. So I wish they would remove no trade clauses from contracts because it literally destroys any value that those guys have if it doesn't work out as a player, individually as a star. Kevin Durant will never win a title without teaming up with somebody. So when I look at the Suns, Devin Booker is the homegrown guy. Like when Miami had their big three, Dwayne Wade was the homegrown guy and the leader of the franchise. But Devin Booker is just not a good leader by any means whatsoever. It's not. Now, let me differentiate. Doesn't mean he's not a really good player. He is an all-star player, but he can't lead a franchise, especially the way he acts on and off the court. So they're going to have to blow this whole thing up so in some way, shape, or form, but they might not be able to because of all the money they're going to have to eat in the process of fixing this situation. So do we have any idea where Kevin Durant is going to end up? Because he is going to get traded in the offseason, right?
Yeah, he's definitely going to get traded. And like you said, he's not going to get nearly the same amount that the Brooklyn Nets got. And it's going to be interesting what teams are going to be potentially interested in him. I've seen a team like rumored maybe the Spurs. You could pair him up with Victor Wembanyama. I think that could be an interesting, comparison or interesting fit. I'm not sure how that would work if they'd be able to keep De'Aaron Fox and then maybe trade Stephon Castle and a lot of their other draft picks. But, do you really want a guy with Kevin Durant's mentality, to rub off on Victor Wembanyama? I wouldn't. So if I was the Spurs, I would stay away from Kevin Durant. I also heard maybe, the Celtics. I heard the Celtics maybe could get Kevin Durant, but I don't see that. I think their team's fine the way it is with Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. So, there's a lot of teams that could be good fits, but I think they're better off without KD.
Who are the Celtics giving up? That's the question I would ask, number one. Because I guarantee you if the Suns are going to be traded, but what are the Celtics giving back? Because you're going to have to give up somebody of prominence to get Kevin Durant. To be honest, though, I think Kevin Durant would destroy all the good mojo that's going on in Boston, to be quite honest, so I wouldn't do that. The other team I heard is Houston, the Rockets. But they've been rumored and attached to KD forever. It just never happened. Maybe it happens now. Maybe. But what is
the Rockets move? I think that would be a good fit because they kind of really need that extra star scorer that could kind of get them over a hump with Sengun, Jalen Green. But like you said, I wonder who they'd have to give up.
Yeah, who is Houston giving up? Because I guarantee you the Suns are going to ask for Sengun, actually. And you know what? The Rockets are going to say, go take an effing walk. If I mean that seriously. Because they're not going to give him up. He's a really young, talented star. So I just don't see that happening. This is going to sound ridiculous, but would the 76ers take another chance on another injured player? I mean, I wouldn't put it past them, to be quite honest. I don't know if they can afford that on their cap, though. Their cap is already through the roof.
So, Nick, what are your thoughts about him on the Spurs?
I'm worried about the Wemby rub-off a little bit because Wemby has such a good game that, well, number one, we got to make sure he's 100% healthy to get back on the court. Because apparently he was dealing with somewhat of an issue when he was still in France, and we just didn't know about it. So if he's healthy and they get that all under control, okay, good. That's step one. Do I really want Kevin Durant on the court with Victor Wembanyama? No, I absolutely do not. I think Chris Paul, believe it or not, is not a bad thing for Wemby because it gives him kind of a veteran presence to kind of, for the first couple of years, hey, Rook, I got you. Just stay with me. We'll build your experience to get up there. I also like Stephon Castle. I really do. I don't want to see them trade Castle. Like, Castle won the dunk contest, right? If I'm not mistaken.
No, I think he was close though to Mac McClung.
But I think he was in second. I think he was in second. But Stephon Castle is a really good player. I think he's
favorite for Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, if they asked for Stephon Castle, I would. If I'm the Spurs, I'd tell the Suns to go take an effing walk too. Like, because the Suns are going to ask for the sun, the moon, the stars, and gravity in the process to get rid of Kevin Durant. So, I don't know. But this is a ton of injuries across the NBA, a lot of big names, but it's on teams that are really not 100% competing right now either. The Suns are going nowhere. I just want to look that up in the standings really quick. You said they were 11th. All right, they're 35-40. So shutting down Kevin Durant doesn't really make a big difference, in my opinion. They are one game out, technically, of the 10 spot. But without Kevin Durant, I just don't see them holding on or getting in whatsoever. Empty the Bench is presented by Playback. Watching sports is more fun with others, but we spend too much of our time watching alone. Playback is a virtual space where communities can stream live sports together with everyone perfectly synced up. Creators can hop on stage, deliver their own play-by-play analysis and commentary, and invite viewers up for Q&A. Playback makes watching sports fully interactive and a social experience, from playing fantasy sports, repping your favorite players and teams, and watching with the commentators and communities you care about. Win or lose, sports are best enjoyed together. Join our community by going to playback.tv/ETB network to find out more, including our live stream schedule. And now back to the show. Let's go to around the NBA. There was a lot of headlines. I'll let you choose. Where do you want to start?
Well, we got to start because there was some suspensions laid out today. You had the brawl between the Detroit Pistons and the Minnesota Timberwolves. And I think I saw Isaiah Stewart got suspended for multiple games. And it was a pretty crazy scuffle. It looked like Naz Reid was just going up for a simple layup. The rookie Ronald Holland did like a simple foul. And it looked like Naz Reid started pointing his finger in Ron Holland's face. They started pushing each other. And then Dante DiVincenzo got involved. And obviously that turned into a brawl. Now you got multiple guys that got suspended. Nothing too crazy, though. I think Stewart was the only one that got the 2 games. I think everybody else may have got a game. So it's nothing too crazy, but it's like, I guess, even though I wasn't alive, but I guess the bad boy Pistons from the 80s and 90s are back.
And by the way, this was done in Detroit. So they said, hello, malice to the palace, too. So I don't know. Just it must be the Palace of Auburn Hills, like where just the fight mentality is. Like you said, it's very simply how you put it. Naz Reid was going for a layup. Someone said something to him that he didn't like, and it led to a pushing battle. By the way, Dante DiVincenzo has balls. I'm just going to say that now because he will fight anybody, and he has no problem doing it, and he is nowhere near the height of some of these guys. By the way, and someone pointed this out on SportsCenter a couple days ago. Do you notice that you never see any highlights from Isaiah Stewart? All you see is just fights from Isaiah Stewart, and that's all you see. Like, you don't get anything else from this guy. Like, whoa. Like, I mean, so his suspension makes sense. The problem is he's gaining a reputation as a fighter, which is not a good thing. DiVincenzo gets 1 game. Ron Holland gets 1 game. Naz Reid gets 1 game. Marcus Sasser gets 1 game. The rest check out. But, of course, Isaiah Stewart, because he was right in the middle of it, was going to get destroyed. So that's not a surprise to me whatsoever. I mean, did you pick anything else out of that brawl or no?
No, that was pretty much it, but you made a good point, though. That's the only thing that you see Isaiah Stewart doing. I mean, I remember him having blood in his face, and he was trying to charge at LeBron James. So I guess he's kind of just the Detroit Pistons bouncer or enforcer on the team. Does all the little dirty work, kind of like the less talented version of Draymond Green. There was some other stuff that happened, though. You got the Chicago Bulls, who've been playing really good basketball. Kobe White has been dropped. I think he averaged like over 28 points per game for the month of March. You have Josh Giddey, who hit the game-winning shot against the LA Lakers. I mean, that was a tremendous shot.
That was incredible. That last sequence, like that last 30 to 40 seconds, where they said there was like 12 points scored in that. And then the half-court runner coming up the court, that was just incredible.
Yeah, the Bulls have been looking like they're starting to get things together, and they traded some players beginning of the season, and it looked like they were going into a rebuild. But a lot of their young players, also their rookie Buzelis, he's really stepped it up as well. They still got Vucevic, so the Bulls, now that they're one of the teams that are going to be in the play-in tournament, maybe they could get a win or two and sneak into the playoffs. Anthony Davis returned for the Mavericks. He played pretty well, and then you got the Clippers and the Timberwolves. Who have been playing really well. Both of those teams, I think, are 7-3 over the last 10 games. Anthony Edwards has been dominating, dropping 30 points a game like he usually does for the Timberwolves. The Clippers, you already had Paul and James Harden doing good. Zubac is playing really well now, and now Kawhi Leonard's back. So maybe this is the year that the Clippers are finally healthy. And basically, since Kawhi Leonard signed so many years ago, they've been waiting for this, and maybe we're finally going to get a healthy Kawhi Leonard in the playoffs on the Clippers.
What's so crazy when I look at the Western Conference standings, so the Clippers are 43-32, so they're 11 games over, but they're in the 8th spot. Think about that. That's how good the West really is. And the West has always been, for the most part, been better than the East, but the East has definitely been competing far more lately over the years. But with the Clippers being in the 8th spot, they're only 5.5 games from the 8th spot to the 2 spot. That's how close these standings are. The number 2 spot is the Rockets at 49-27. And that's only 5.5 games away from the 8th spot. Could they make a run? Yeah, they could make a run. But the Clippers never proved themselves in the playoffs at all. It'd be nice to see them go past round 1, to be quite honest. It'd be nice to see Kawhi do something since winning his title in Toronto. So, I don't know. The Clippers, I'd love to see the Clippers go further. That would be great for the sport. And seeing James Harden possibly compete, first of all, never going to win a title just because there are so many teams better. The Celtics are better. The Cavs are better. OKC is better. The Nuggets are better. I could go on and on and on. I think the Warriors at a 6th seed are better, even though I think the Clippers have better players currently. I just think the Warriors are going to have more experience in the playoff picture. But I don't know. We'll see. Was there anything else on the NBA front or no?
No, I think that summed it up for this week in the NBA.
Okay. So let's move over to the tournament. So we haven't really spoken a lot since the tournament has really begun. What did you make of this past round?
I thought the Florida and Texas Tech game was unbelievable. I mean, the grit that Florida showed, it looked like they were going to be the one upset. But they showed grittiness and toughness. Walter Clayton Jr., those 2 3-pointers he made was absolutely clutch. And they were able to come back and win against Texas Tech. And ultimately, it seemed like the other 3 games were kind of like one-sided. I know Michigan State came back to make the Auburn game kind of close, but it seems like all those other teams kind of had that game in hand. I thought Duke in the second half played really, really good defensively, locking down Mark Sears and the rest of that Alabama offense who had been so good all season. Also, like I said, they're really, we didn't really get to talk much about the tournament so far, but really not many upsets. The only upset that I really think that happened was you had the St. John's upset with Arkansas. Other than that, pretty much the favorite has won. And we said that, Nick, coming into the tournament, that was the prediction that this was going to be the year of the favorites, that this year that there was just so many great teams. And like I said, Nick, all 4 of these number 1 seeds, I think are 4 of the top 6 teams in college basketball history in terms of team efficiency. So this is just the year of the dominant teams. And I guess this is what we've been waiting for is the Final Four. But it was disappointing in Elite 8 when you had 3 of the 4 games that really weren't that close.
I mean, they're calling it the chalk. That's essentially what they're calling the top 4 seeds because you just chalk them in. They were all going to be there. On the Final Four, Matt. Well, before we go there, this has been an incredible tournament. By the way, I think it got blown way out of proportion because everyone was like, "There's no Cinderellas, there's no upsets. How can you have a tournament without the upsets?" I'll tell you how. Because all the teams at the top were really good this year. I mean, I can't think of really any upsets. Have there really been any figurative upsets in this tournament? Because I can't think of any, except for the St. John's.
Yeah, that's the only one I could think of. And obviously it's always cool to see that 15 seed, the school that you never heard of before, now going up against a team like Duke in the third or fourth round of the tournament. But that's not really what gets ratings. What gets ratings is seeing a Duke versus a Florida, not a Duke versus Roast Beef State in the second round of the playoffs. So, I absolutely agree with that. The only thing is I just don't want, blowouts. I want the top teams to actually play really competitive basketball against the top teams. But I think ultimately it's going to set up for probably one of the best Final Fours we've seen in a long time because all these teams are good, and there's no way we're going to get any blowouts. All these games are going to come down to the final minute.
You know what kind of stunk, though, was the Duke-Alabama game, just being a 20-point game. Like, everyone was expecting that to be like a real, like, barn burner close game, and Alabama fell apart the second half of the game, really, to be honest. Like, and I also think it didn't help that they shot the lights out the game before. I think they had, close to 30 three-pointers the game before.
I think they broke the record for a tournament game, correct?
Yeah, I think, it was an unbelievable shooting game for Alabama. Like, you can't make it up. Like, everything was going in. And I remember saying, I don't know who I said it to, but I said, law of averages was the term I used because you can only shoot that well so much. Like, there's no way you can beat the performance that Alabama had offensively in the last round, right?
No.
So, and Duke is just really good. Like, it took them quite a few years to get back to prominence, but they're finally, and you can't forget Cooper Flagg, obviously. Like, this guy just does it. I think he had 3 or 4 blocks and put up 30 points. I mean, this guy's going to be a stud when he gets to the NBA. And then just looking ahead to, I guess we can go to it, but looking ahead to the Final Four, what was the stat I saw? That the Houston-Duke matchup. I think it's the number 1 offense and the number 1 defense playing against one another. Is that right?
Yes.
So what makes that matchup intriguing to you?
I think that's going to be a huge, intriguing matchup. And I think coming into this, Duke has been the most talented team. And they have the best player, most talented player in Cooper Flagg. I mean, besides ball handling, Cooper Flagg is A+ at everything else. And then you got Con Knipple, you got Malawatch, who've been very impactful freshmen. You got Tyrese Proctor and Zion James, who've been very impactful upperclassmen, juniors and seniors for this team. But ultimately, with Houston's defense and experience, I think that's going to be a bad matchup for Duke. And I think this may be where Duke may not look so flawless. Now, I know they're going to have a huge size advantage. Duke is one of, if not the most tallest team in the tournament. I mean, all their players are significantly tall, and they got a bunch of guys over 6'9", 6'10". Houston doesn't have a lot of tall players. So that's going to be one thing that Duke's going to want to, use as their advantage. They're going to want to use their size. But ultimately, these things are won by teams that have experience and teams that are older. I know Duke has been this unbelievable talented team, and you can't take anything away from them. But I just think that at the end of the day, with all those freshmen and all those young players, I feel like a team like Houston that can play defense, get them off their game, and have the experience, I feel like it's going to be a bad matchup. So I think Houston's going to get the upset over Duke, who is the more talented team. And then I think they're going to match up with Florida in the Natty. And just like my prediction before the tournament, I think Florida's going to win the Natty. They got everything. They got grit. They got toughness. They got great guard play. Walter Clayton Jr. has been one of the top 5 players in all of college basketball. You got Martin, another good guard. Rashard, another good guard. Alex Condon, who's a great big. This team can do everything. And they showed that even when you got a lead on them, they can still come back and beat you. So I'm going to go with Florida to win it all. But I think this is going to be one of the closest Final Four we've seen in probably a decade.
I mean, I asked this to the guys when we did the stream. I think it was 2008 was the last time we had 4 1 seeds in the Final Four. Like, it's rare. It doesn't happen very often. So just from a perspective of good basketball, got to take advantage of watching these games. Now, on the Auburn side, who is the name of the player that was getting all that attention in the game that had the injury?
Oh, that's Johnny Broom. He's been their best player and probably second to Cooper Flagg for the second best player in all of college basketball.
that guy's amazing. Like when he's not hurt and he can actually run the court. That guy can rebound. He can shoot from mid range. I think I saw him shoot a few threes, if I'm not mistaken. Also,
I think he made a three right when he came back in the game from his injury.
But he's the leader, right? Like he's the guy. They need him if they're gonna have a chance against Florida. Now, what's interesting about Florida? I mean, they could have been upset a few times in this tournament. They probably should have lost to UConn, probably, but UConn kind of just fell apart in the second half. And I don't know if you think that UConn should have won that game, or do you think Florida was par for the course there?
I think Florida, deserved and earned that win. Like I said, they showed it all season. Even if they got trailing, they can come back and beat you. And I think ultimately that's what's going to set them up for success because they've been in a lot of these very, crucial high pressure moments.
Yeah, I had Florida Duke just because I those teams are known. Like you said, Florida has had close games. Maybe that helps them down the stretch. I feel like Duke though hasn't really played a close game, have they?
No, they were kind of close with Alabama in the first half, but as a whole, they haven't really had a close game this whole tournament from start to finish. One last thing I'll say about this tournament, Nick, before we move on, is when I originally did my bracket, I had all number one seeds. And if you do your bracket every year and you finish with all number one seeds, you probably did something wrong because it doesn't ever really happen. So, I sat there and left it there like that for a couple of days. And the day before the tournament, I'm like, you know what? There's no way I'm going to be stupid enough to do all 4 number one seeds. So I went in there and changed it. I picked Tennessee to go there. I picked another team to go there. And I ended up, being wrong. I should have just kept the number one seeds.
The only one seed I didn't have, so I actually had Houston Duke on the one side. I had that. I had Florida, but I had Michigan State.
Yeah,
the 2 seed.
I had Michigan State winning, and I had Tennessee winning as well. So that's what I was wrong about.
By the way, Tennessee was good until they fell apart too. I mean, that game was incredible. I mean, we had quite a few overtimes since we last spoke. Also, what was the game that had the big comeback in overtime? I'm forgetting. All of a sudden, it was the first overtime game of the tournament.
Was that Arkansas and Texas Tech?
I think so. Yeah, that was an incredible game.
Yeah,
incredible game.
Texas Tech came back, hit a buzzer beater to send it to overtime, and then hit the buzzer beater to win it in overtime.
I think they were down 16. I think in that game at one point, like that was. I kind of felt bad for Calipari a little bit, but at the same time, if I remember my stats correctly, it's the first time he was 35-0. Leading by 6 in the second half, I think. And that was his first time that he led by 6 in the second half and didn't win. I mean, that is pretty impressive, by the way, for it to take 36 attempts to lose, being up 6.5. That's incredible. That goes to show you that he's had plenty of chances to be in the tournament, too. But yeah, I had Duke, Florida, and I think I had Duke winning the title. I just think his Cooper Flag is going to hopefully lead them. But I do agree that they're young, and that's not usually a recipe for winning. But a lot of people are saying like this Duke team is different than other teams in the past that were young. So we'll see what happens. All right, 2 stories left to go. Let's talk about torpedo bats. Now, everyone is probably saying, what the heck is a torpedo bat? I talked about this on a live stream the other day. Basically, the reason they call it a torpedo bat is because they're taking the wood weight and moving it down slightly. And when you go to swing, because a lot of times these guys get sawed off when they're hitting. And either they break the bat or they get jammed. And they're moving the wood. They're not changing the bat. They're moving the wood that holds the bat together up so that there's more of a sweet spot on the bat. And it led to a lot of controversy and a lot of people having issues with these bats, which, by the way, I'm going to say this a lot I might sound like a broken record when I say it. It's legal what they did. Major League Baseball cleared the bats. That's very important in this story because a lot of people say, oh, well, the Yankees did this and blah, blah, blah. We can't let them have an advantage. No. Major League Baseball had to approve the bats before they could be used in a Major League game. And of course, everybody was up in arms because in the first series against the Brewers, the 3-game series, which, by the way, we haven't had a chance to, but MLB season officially got underway. They hit 15 home runs in 3 games. And in game 2, they hit 9 in that game. And I think they ended up winning like 21-9. It was like a football score. And all of a sudden, you're like, not fair. That's cheating. Like everything you would hear when someone finds a way or an advantage or something to get better. And it was just funny how people were, and like everyone around Major League Baseball was like, no, it's the Yankees. They did something. They cheated. I'm like, oh, just stop. Like, have you had a chance to look at these torpedo bats or no?
Yeah, they definitely look pretty interesting, and I can definitely see, how the weight distribution is definitely more closer to the middle of the bat where the ball's going to be hitting the bat, where you said where that sweet spot is. And I just want to ask you, Nick. Now the Yankees now are not the only team that can use it, right? Like all the other teams can use it as well. So it can't be cheating if all 30 organizations are able to use the same bats.
There are other teams, other players using the bats. That's what's making me want to like blow my head up because. Just because the Yankees hit 15 home runs, of course they were going to be the target of the torpedo bat. So, like I'm reading a headline here. De La Cruz, the Reds' young star, Ellie De La Cruz, had 7 RBIs with a torpedo bat. Why aren't we going after him? Why are we not going after other people who are using the bats? And I'm talking about being fair to everyone. I'm a Yankee fan, just for full disclosure. But you have to go after everybody fairly. First of all, they're never going to keep that pace up, hitting 15 home runs in 3 games. If that were the case, they would hit like 1,000 home runs during the season. That's just not possible. And the argument I made, and some people in the live stream were acting irrationally when I was trying to explain it. Just because you create a bigger sweet spot doesn't mean you're going to hit more home runs. It's the same thing as steroids or PEDs in baseball. When they were going through all those allegations and they had the whole legal situation. Just because you take steroids doesn't make you a better home run hitter. You know this from sports. What do steroids give you that, or what are they supposed to do?
Well, they basically speed up your recovery time so you're able to work out longer and more often. Well, you still have to put in the work.
That's the only thing it does. It doesn't make you a better athlete. It doesn't, well, all right, let me be careful with that statement. But it doesn't make you a Goliath. And same thing with the bat. You still have to hit the ball perfectly to hit it out of the ballpark. You still have to catch the ball. Like, you know what I mean? Like, these bats don't make you a 70 home run hitter like Barry Bonds was. You still have to put the work in.
And honestly, Nick, as someone who follows all sports, I could definitely, as someone that probably agrees with a large part of the population, a sport like baseball has been a sport that's been getting overshadowed by other sports like the NBA, like the NFL, because it's just a more exciting sport. So, as a viewer, if there's going to be more home runs, that's going to get more people to want to watch baseball. And if I know that there's going to be more home runs on average now, that makes me want to watch baseball even more. And I think that's great for baseball because it can get more people wanting to watch the sport. And, when there's more competition to get viewers to watch you, all of baseball should love this because this should bring more fans to baseball.
See, what people forget, and I'm sure you've heard this phrase many times, even though like you're not the biggest baseball fan, chicks dig the long ball. That's a phrase that's been around for forever. And if you remember historically, you might, just from name value, the mid-early 90s to the early 2000s, you had the Sammy Sosa, Mark McGwire home run battle that happened, and that changed baseball forever because everyone was ecstatic about the ball flying out of the ballpark. They both had 60-plus home runs that year. And it was Cardinals-Cubs, so that's a big rivalry. So people need to take a chill pill. I get why people were upset back then because Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa were known PED users. So that's cheating the game because steroids are against professional sports rules. But if you're measuring a bat properly and you're doing everything the right way, who cares if the bat looks like a torpedo or if it looks like a candle? Who cares? Like, it doesn't matter. As long as the bat fits the parameters of MLB's rules, it really shouldn't matter what your opinion is about the bats. Everyone has access. And I laughed because the reason I did the reaction video the other day was because Dave Portnoy, Barstool Sports, comes out. He's a Red Sox fan, mind you, number one. Ban the bats. The Yankees are stink as athletes and hitters, and they need every advantage they can get. Dave, are you mad because your Red Sox went 1-3 in the first 4 games? And first of all, I'm not naive. It's the beginning of the season, so you could get off to a bad start. It's very early on in the season. But hey Dave, if your Red Sox hit the 15 home runs with the torpedo bats, would you be saying the same thing? Would you be saying the same thing? No, you would not be saying the same thing.
No, he definitely won it. And, honestly, I think he's just obviously a little, upset that his, Boston Red Sox are not, hitting home runs the way the Yankees are. And, he says, they need every advantage that they could get. Well, did Aaron Judge have the torpedo bats when he hit 60 home runs just a couple years ago? So, I think Aaron Judge is just a great home run hitter no matter what bat he's using.
And by the way, he hit 4 home runs in that series. Guess what he didn't use?
The torpedo bat?
He did not use the torpedo bat. He had 4 home runs without the torpedo bat. So I don't want to hear that, torpedo bat. Like, I'm all for the torpedo bat if it means the ball's going to fly off the bat more and it's going to lead to more runs. Like, offense is good for sports. People forget that. Like, do you really, I'll ask you, because this is the way I see it. Do you really want to see a defensive battle in any professional sport?
No, not at all. You want the high-powered, high-scoring games.
Like, I get, once you get to the playoffs, is it sometimes bad to have a blowout? Yeah, but in the postseason, you want to see the home runs fly out of the park. I don't know. It's different for the NBA, for the NFL. Like, NFL, if you get a blowout, sometimes it can be a little boring sometimes, but getting to see all the touchdowns all over the field in the NFL postseason is part of what makes the sport great. In the NBA, when you hit the clutch shot or someone goes for 40 or 50 points in an NBA playoff game, it's rare because you don't see it because the defensive level is brought up more. So let baseball just be. And they're having issues too. Like the whole ESPN thing, they lost their deal. And now there's a report that ESPN might come back to the table, which I don't know if that's true. But Major League Baseball needs ESPN in the worst way because their revenue is dropping. The average age of a baseball fan is somewhere between 45 and 65. Okay? Think about that for a second. It's the kids are not watching baseball. It's a problem. And full disclosure, the first sport that I got into was what? Baseball. Yes. I grew up a Yankee fan. I didn't watch anything else for the longest time. I used to watch every Yankee game on TV. Mind you, the reason I say that because that's not the case anymore. I didn't miss a game. Now, because of the way baseball is, I don't have to watch every Yankee game to know what's going on. I can go on a device and get the highlights, and every so often I'll watch a game. But baseball is just still too long to sit and watch. Even with the pitch clock, it's taking 2 hours and 10 minutes, which, by the way, is good for a baseball game, believe it or not. If you're down in the 2-hour range, it's a little more watchable as a baseball fan. But still, it's boring. You don't get as much action as you do. It's not like the NBA where you get dunks and blocks and all that stuff, or in the NFL, you sack a quarterback, and that's kind of exciting. Or So it's different. But I'm all for the torpedo bats. Like, if it helps baseball, baseball needs all the help it can get at this point. All right. Last story. You want to take a gander?
Yeah, we got a decent fight week coming up. One really big fight in the main event that stands out. You got Leon Murphy going up against Josh Emmett, which is a huge fight in the featherweight division. Leon Murphy is a guy who has been a huge upcoming prospect. I don't think hasn't lost in the UFC. Josh Emmett, who's been a veteran of the game, has been in title eliminators and has been in a lot of big fights. A guy who has a lot of power, and if he touches you, you basically die. I mean, we've seen what happened when he touched Bryce Mitchell. Bryce Mitchell started having a seizure and started shaking on the floor. But then, you got a guy like Leon Murphy who is just so technical. And I think Leon Murphy is going to get this win. It's basically going to be technical versus power. And I think Leon Murphy's too technical to allow Josh Emmett to get that shot, because the only way Emmett wins this fight is if he can get that one shot. I just don't think he's going to be able to land it. So I think Leon Murphy gets this win by decision. And becomes a future title contender in the featherweight division.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've been more excited about the UFC. I've been watching with all the different stuff coming out. I was talking to Zan. He said he saw a cryptic Instagram post from, I don't remember who's John Jones taking on his next fight. Is it Aspinall?
Playing Tom Aspinall.
Yeah. So apparently, Tom Aspinall apparently had a cryptic Instagram post, and I'm trying to find it, and I can't seem to find it currently. But supposedly, like he was saying, like, "Oh, I'm not 100% sure this and that," and oh, here it is. Patience is not simply the ability to wait; it's how we behave while we're waiting. What can you make anything of that?
It's a shot at John Jones, because not only has John Jones been making him wait, he's been pretty disrespectful. And I think he's been making these negotiations a lot more difficult. And I guess there's demands of like $30+ million. He pretty much wants to make enough money to where even if he loses, then it doesn't even matter because he's set for life. So I think this fight will ultimately happen. I just think Tom Aspinall is just getting frustrated. I mean, rightfully so. I mean, you're talking about a guy who's been the interim champion for almost 2 years now. He won the interim belt at the end of 2023, and he's still trying to fight for the undisputed belt against John Jones. So I understand his frustrations.
But why would you say anything knowing that the fight is not officially negotiated?
I think it's all just a part of the tactical mental warfare him and John Jones have been doing back and forth. I mean, we also saw at the UFC Fight Night a few weeks ago, they showed Tom Aspinall, and he was holding a toy duck in his hand, referencing John Jones. So it's just a back and forth these two guys have been doing for each other.
Now, isn't it true Aspinall is close to retirement also?
No, he's only in his early 30s, in the prime of his career. It's John Jones, who's been around for a while, who's been discussing retirement, and this probably would be his final fight.
I mean, the guy's done very well for himself. I'm sure he's not hurting for money or anything. I think this is more just he wants one more fight, right?
Yeah, he wants one more huge payday. Like I said, he wants to get paid more money than any of his other fights.
I mean, I'm reading reports here that he's looking for millions. Is that true?
Yeah, I heard 30+ million.
How? Like, I don't know how the financial of the fight game works, but like, is that even a remote possibility?
I think with John Jones, possibly, but I think Dana White would negotiate a much smaller number. But he knows this is the biggest fight in the UFC to make, and whatever he does pay John Jones, it would be worth it because he'll definitely make his money back and then some.
I'm wondering if that statement, though, from Aspinall and then all the negotiation stuff from Jones is pretty much a game of chicken until the fight is officially announced, right?
That's what it seems like.
This is the one thing I don't get about this sport, like the mental warfare that they go on social media, like the guys who are fighting each other, but maybe that's just part of the tactic, right? I mean, sometimes you have to mentally psych out your opponent. So I don't know. When do you think this fight happened?
I think it's going to happen. They've been saying during the summer, but I think with the delays, I think we're going to see it during the fall. I'm going to say either September or November. Now, I know normally the November card is usually in Madison Square Garden, and that would be kind of John Jones's hometown. That's where he fought last year, and that's where he tried to fight Stipe the first time. So it wouldn't surprise me if John Jones is trying to stall so that he can fight in November. So I'm going to say either the end of the summer or November.
I mean, that'd be kind of cool heading into the holiday season, just getting that type of fight. Because usually by the end of the year, they have those big cards, the UFC. But no, that I would definitely watch that one for sure. I'd highly anticipate. I like the bigger pay per views. I'm assuming this would be a pay per view if it's at MSG. So that'll be fun. But that'll do it for this episode of Empty the Bench. Make sure you follow us on social media. Empty the Bench at ETB Sports, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok at ETB Sports. Follow the Empty the Bench Podcast Network at ETB Network, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Follow our YouTube channel, youtube.com/ETB Network for everything, including this show, our other shows, some clips and other stuff that we put up there as well. And if you can't watch on the video side, listen to Empty the Bench wherever you get your podcasts, all audio podcasting platforms. Check out ETB Substack, etbnetwork.substack.com, where our short series, LU Analytics, is there every Thursday. And like I said, I keep teasing it because I think it's a really good one. I promise you will want to see this one because this is a little bit off the board of basketball, but it's connected. And finally, Empty the Bench presented by Playback. We were doing college March Madness. We've been doing a lot of those games. The plan is to get us mostly all together for the national championship because that's during the week, right? So we'll try to get that in the staple. Like I said, Playback just made a deal with Major League Baseball. We started doing some of that. It is actually really awesome because they have all the networks through MLB.TV. So check all that out as well. All right. Anything left to say? Final words before we put this episode to bed?
No, I think that pretty much summed it up. It's going to be a great week of sports, and I can't wait for the Final Four and go Duke.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun Final Four. We'll recap it because are we back before the national championship or no?
I think the national championship's on Monday, so we'll be right after the championship.
All right, so we can react to the Final Four and the national championship in one. But that'll do it for episode 272. He's Anthony Balester. I'm Nick Morgasen. Have a good night, everybody. We'll see you next week.